Remember this. Remember this moment. This perfect night. You think I'm crazy?
Hi there. This is PT McNiff from the Long Take Review podcast, and you are listening to the Rebel Base Card podcast. Great pull, kid.
You've seen the show, and like us, you have questions.
Ooh, that was a good one, but try this one on for size.
No question should be left off your list.
Whoa. I got a crazy theory, but hear me out.
But you better have some spares.
Oh, that was one of mine. All right, let's do this instead.
With me, as always, is my friend and Card Squadron winger.
This is Greg Cass, a.k.a. Ion Cannon.
We've recorded at home and across the U.S.
Last summer, we were from the Boston Common. This week, we're in Chicago.
This is day 3 of celebration.
The show has had many names, but the purpose is the same. Let's share some time at the table.
Ding ding, it's time for breakfast.
Welcome to the Breakfast Pack, a Rebel Base Card micro podcast series. A returning Rebel Base Card podcast series that asks more questions than it answers. Today on Breakfast Pack number 101, once again the return of questions and or breakfast. In this episode, we're going to be asking questions and making comments on the second arc of Andor Season 2. Episode 4, Ever Been to Ghorman? Episode 5, I Have Friends Everywhere. And Episode 6, What a Festive Evening. With me, I don't know why I said it that way, Greg. With me for an unbelievable 101st, we are starting our second century of podcasts. I guess I'm getting ahead of myself. Is my Card Squadron winger and good friend Gregory Cass from IonCannon.com. How did you make it through the first week of Andor and everything else? How you doing?
Ding ding, it's breakfast time. I'm doing great. It is with all the love and affection of my heart, it is a lot to process, to get through. And, you know, it was really striking when we get into Greg's list, I'm sure we'll talk about, but like clearly people are having trouble like keeping up with the pace, and everybody's making these interesting coverage decisions. So I think everybody did a great job. I consumed as much as possible, but throw in, 6 screenings of Revenge of the Sith like a healthy, normal person, and you run out of time for your not Star Wars parts of your life very quickly. But I want to shut up because we have a very special guest from another part of my podcasting life, and I'll let you introduce him.
And you know what's kind of funny is that, you know, it makes it easier because in a world where a series is compressed over 4 weeks, it's better when all of our podcast friends are on similar, like on the same shows, because that way, you know, for example, when we get to the Greg's list, you know, with Colby being on Force Ghost, and you're like, thank God, 2 of them together making a great podcast. So we pulled in yet another member of the Long Take Review. PT McNiff returns to the Breakfast Pack. I know he's just champing at the bit to talk about Andor. I don't know why my hands are just going. I don't know why I'm talking with my hands. You can't see that. But anyway, PT, welcome back to the podcast. How you been, bud?
Thank you. I've been great. I mean, I've been in this peak Star Wars time between Revenge of the Sith in the theaters. I only went twice because I'm not a normal adult. And then getting new episodes of Andor. And it feels great to be here on a week when we could quote Cassian Andor, I have more questions than recommendations. So this feels right.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. And this is going to be fun because I think as each week goes, it's just going to keep ramping up. And so, you know, we kind of like took the first week and like you said, I compressed it all into one viewing. I still have to go like every Tuesday night to go pick up the wife from work. So it's like watch episode 1 and then cram in the other 2. This time, still talking with my hands. This time I spaced it out. You know, as we saw, some of our friends are spacing it out even more, making more sense because, you know, who's complaining about show length now? Not this guy. You know, you can go back many, many episodes in the 100 episodes we've done, me complaining about, like, why isn't it longer? I'm like, at this point, Tony, it's cool, man. If you're going to do these 3, I can take a 30 or 40-minute episode. It's cool. It's cool. Like, I learned my lesson. Anyway, but yeah, so if you're joining us for the first time, right, there's 100 before. Have fun. This is a insert podcast in the regular feed where Greg, PT, and I are going to kind of ask our questions. We're going to trade questions on the latest episode of Andor. So, of course, we're talking about new Star Wars. Lots of new Star Wars. Lots of Star Wars. So if you haven't seen the second arc yet or completed it, we're going to talk about stuff that happens over 4, 5, and 6. We're not going to hit everything, but we're going to talk about it. So if you haven't got caught up, it's cool. Watch it at your leisure. Come back. We decided last week that we were going to go probably over the summer when everything calms down, because hello, Light and Magic, hello, Tales. I don't know when we're going to talk about that stuff. But we are going to have Second Breakfast. Yeah, we're going to go totally Lord of the Rings on the title because we've had our first breakfast, but what about Second Breakfast? So we're going to go back and kind of talk about a lot of these episodes in greater detail, and we'll probably have some of our friends back because, hello, 12 episodes. So it should be fun. At any rate, all right, there aren't like points or bonus rounds. Like I said, we're trading questions, but there is something called the Greg's List. Now, because we, Fast and Furious went through the first arc afterwards, I felt clean that I can go ahead and, read a long take review of it. I could ingest some other podcast talking about that first arc. But I am curious, PT, have you had a chance to, after you kind of watched the first arc, what did you dive into? Something to be read, something to be watched on YouTube, something to be listened to, and who would you like to kind of promote out there?
Well, I mean, the first thing, of course, I listened to as soon as possible was the Rebel Base Card Breakfast Pack.
Get you on the podcast so much easier that way, too, yeah.
Yeah, I believe they hit a milestone recently. It was, but of course, that was always great. And then internally, I do have to agree with you that I did read Jen's write-up on the long take on her Substack, which was excellent and gave me some interesting ideas that fueled one or two of my questions. The other podcast that I have turned to for this is Sky Talkers, which is a usual sort of reaction breakdown one, and I really like. They've got real English major approaches and mindsets to thinking about things. Plus, they got screeners, so they're watching them an arc at a time, and so they don't know what's going to happen next. But the episodes are out the next morning, so I will watch my 3 episodes Tuesday night, and Wednesday morning I could start listening to Sky Talkers. And besides that, I also read the great write-up on Octo Baby, which is another Substack, another blog by Matthew Freeman. That was I thought that was really insightful. So that's my list.
Nice. What about you, Dr. Cass?
Well, I wanted to welcome back and celebrate that Coffee with Kenobi came back, and Dan and I assume just Dan made the decision to go one episode at a time. So the first one was just Andor 1 year later. So I saw that in my queue, and I was like, "Oh, cool! A retrospective on Andor a year out." And of course, forgot that was the title of the first episode only. And he had on some guy named Ross Holleben. He was okay. And also Tom Gross, and so it was wonderful to hear their discussion. And I actually wanted to shout it out mainly because I like just getting the one episode. It was kind of nice to have one show that was just going one at a time. So I appreciate that. I then binged heavily because it's dog walking season. So Force Ghost Connections with Anthony and guest Colby. A pleasure to hear 2 of our good friends on there. Podcast Stardust. I always love hearing what Dennis and Jay are up to on that show, and they did not disappoint. I did read Jen's long take review and really enjoyed the kind of general theme she got into of community and the way fascism relies on the squelching of community. And then I tried to get some normies in the mix by going to David Chen's Decoding TV as well, which, is a general, and The Watch, which I mentioned last week, had a great interview with Tony Gilroy. Those are, good, strong mainstream TV critics, not necessarily Star Wars fans. I will say Decoding TV pointed to that quote about Tony Gilroy saying the schedule would be hard on podcasters. And they were like, there's not many recap podcasters. So Tony Gilroy probably listens to us. And I was like, what are you talking about? There are so many recap podcasts. maybe not your bread and butter prestige TV, but certainly a Star Wars show. There's a lot more than like the 2 or 3 they were picturing. And then I listened to Blast Points, who had pre-recorded their breakdown before heading to Japan, and so it was good to kind of hear their timey-wimey take on these episodes before everybody got so excited in Japan. So I think that's all I did, and then I tried to be attentive to my wife and children. Kind of failed. So, Greg, what did you listen to?
I don't know how you fit it all in and still had a chance to watch Revenge of the Sith. I would have to say Ross, what a poker face, because I got to have breakfast with him on Saturday down at Purdue University. He had graciously got some a little bit of swag. We traded some swag and then kind of walked around, found a great old bookstore and then some that was just off campus after breakfast at a really great place called Triple X Family Restaurant, which doesn't sound like it should go together. It sounds like it sounds like when AI puts a paper together for you guys to grade that you go, okay. But it's been around since 1929. It had a really great menu. Had they have some root beer that you can like buy and stuff like that. But it was a great time. But yeah, I talked to him because I'm kind of building this little May the 4th episode, and so we got to have a little bit of Ross talk about Celebration, which I'm hoping that we can slap together because I'm going on vacation over the weekend, and so I've got a lot going on. But yeah, it was nice because on the way down, I had a chance to listen to the aforementioned CWK, welcoming back, Dan and company. And I agree, Greg. I liked kind of like, all right, it's nice to kind of go over because that way there's a lot of ground in each one of these. And so, but also shout out to Force Ghost Conversations once again, Colby and Anthony. It was nice kind of having them together. It's like having these combinations. You go, ooh, that's a nice combo. I like that. They worked well together there. Normie Podcast, yeah, Culture Gab Fest from Slate talked about it. And sometimes it's interesting because you've got folks that are completely kind of disassociated to kind of go, all right, it's a nice little reality check. And that will kind of come in later tonight as we talk about this particular arc. And of course, Jen's Long Take Review, glad that's back. I was able to get my review into Fantha Tracks almost at the wire. I think I beat a couple of people in, but I'm telling you, even with, like Mark coming back from Celebration and everybody just kind of like furiously putting it through, it was nice to kind of see how everybody was kind of like organizing it, because how are you going to write in, 600 to 800 words, your review of an arc? So at any rate, all righty. So let's see, Greg. After we get done with our questions tonight, Greg sometimes likes to remind me when I kind of lose track of where we are. Greg's going to kind of keep track of the tally of who's going when and where, just in case I forget. But afterwards, remember, both of you, we are going to be giving our Pringles cans review of the arc. I think we kind of agreed on that last week as far as that. If you want to throw in a flavor, who am I to judge? We love all the flavors of the Pringles. Okay, the plain is kind of like, but I'm here to say all flavors are valid. So let's go there. Start there. PT, I'm going to throw it to you. I am kind of curious. This is going to be tough. Where are you going to start with your first question?
I mean, I'm trying to decide. I knew from past listening and past experience, you throw it to me first, and I have a small question and a big question. I think I'm going to go with the big question, and I'll start with that. Why not? Well, it's more big just in terms of like a big picture, and it is. I don't mean this as any sort of bad judgment or insult. I think it's interesting. Why are we seeing these proto-rebellion groups who are not good at what they do? That's been very important across these first two arcs. And why do you think that is?
Good question. Which is, as PT knows, that's what you do at an academic conference when you don't know the answer, and you say that and celebrate their question while you think of what you want to say, and maybe you then explain why you said it so you can get even more time to think in your head. So the answer I had formulated right from the start is, of course, I do think there's something powerful in the fact that we're looking around these spaces, these plot lines, and we're not just seeing the Luke Skywalkers and the Han Solos, because it's easy to to be in a rebellion and be the hero, right? If you're good at what you do, it's very easy to kind of move your way through these rebellions and push along the ways. But I think you're absolutely right that Tony Gilroy seems very interested in like who else is here and who else is filling in those spaces. And what comes to mind first would be just simply that he wants to give a picture of normal people as well. And I'm laughing in my head because we always refer to the normies on Long Take Review. But I think there is a point that when you're faced with this kind of oppression in this regime, that the individual choices of every normal person matters in that fight. And even when you are not able to be successful, I'm thinking of Nemec, right? Try. That's all he said, right? Like, you never know which action's going to break the back. It's probably not going to be the Pai Mei Brigade, and it's probably not going to be the Ghorman Front, but it matters that these people looked around them and they tried. And I think that's a lot of Luthen's speech in the middle of the second episode, I think, or in the beginning of the third. I guess it's the very beginning of the third, when he picks up Cassian and Cassian's like, it's too late. They sat around for too long and now they don't have a chance. And Luthen says, but they made the choice to fight, and that matters. And I think Gilroy wants us to remember that we all have that choice, even if we're going to be totally inept at it. Greg, what do you think?
We touched a little bit of this, I think, last week, and I liked the fact that I like seeing people with flaws. I always sort of like, we've seen too much.
That's why you invited me to co-host. That's right. Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
He sets me up, smacks me down. No, but I think flaws are interesting, and I do, as someone, if you watch network TV, right, something I have very little patience for in network TV are the perfect prim and proper, the perfect sets. Everybody is so coiffed. Everybody, and it's almost, you've got these cookie cutter type of folks. Like if you're watching any kind of police procedural, it's one of those things where it's like, none of this really interests me, and they'll try to like write around it, but you can almost see the makeup. So I like seeing things. I like seeing that people are trying and they're not succeeding. And gosh, it was almost funny. It's like, I don't know where I'm going to put this in, but I'll put it in here. It was one of those things, like at the end of the heist, of all people, Cyril takes a sigh of relief, right? Like he was so excited. Like it was just, but it was all in his own head, right? It was like the one shot. Oh, okay, one shot was fired. And you're just like, that's what a normal person would do. And it's just like, we would get excited about the most trivial things. We would be the one that makes the mistakes. We would be the one, and it shows it's sloppy. But it shows you that we could maybe fit in there somewhere, instead of like, could we be Han Solo? No. Could we be Luke Skywalker? No. I mean, I grew up near farm boys. I know exactly how they operate, but I'm just saying that I couldn't be the one that blows up the Death Star, but I could probably be the one that fuels the fighter that goes to blow up the Death Star. I could probably do that. I could pull that off. So, and I also do like it when it was sloppy. Now, that said, my patience with that last week was very tried, because you're like, clearly you're like, get these pawns off the table. But you start thinking about, like, the Krieger and his 30 men from the first episode, from the first season of Andor that were scrubbed, right? And so it just shows us together. And I think also Rebels did a lot of groundwork, because we kind of expected to see more of an organized rebellion, and you really didn't see it until you kind of get towards the end, when you're starting to see the Alliance getting pulled together, and you're starting to see, it was nice they brought in some pilot. There's some Y-wings, there's some X-wings, there's Mon Mothma, there's all that kind of stuff, and that's more of what we're used to seeing. But it's kind of nice to see the beta testing, if you will, of the rebellion. And so I like seeing it. Like I said, it's one of those where I think every minute of this season is priceless, and you're just sort of like, wow, all right. But so, and I will also say, in Tony Gilroy, I trust on this. There's my long answer for it. What about you, PT?
But it's a good answer. So I like both of what both of you were saying, and I do agree with that. I think that this is the way to show it is a grassroots movement, and not just like Mon Mothma and Admiral Akbar didn't come down and say, "Okay, this is what you're all rebelling now," but that it's people who are coming together. And part of the reason why I was thinking about this was because of Jen's write-up for the last arc, where she sort of started it and rooted it in Tony Gilroy talking about the show being about community. And I found it so interesting because there were so many things that felt like, oh, but it's the people on the Empire who are anti-individual, and there's both Cassian and Bix and also Valencinta talk about how Luthen doesn't want them together. Luthen wants them separate, and being more individual than being a group. And I kind of landed on the trajectory being conformity, which is what the Empire wants. When Edie says to Cyril, "Don't become too much of an individual," she means fall in line and do what you're supposed to do. Come back to Coruscant, whatever. Do what where we think you're supposed to do. But then it goes to being an individual who breaks out of that, and then this sort of attempt to connect and link up and become more of a community is the awkward transition these groups are going through. They've stopped. Or they've stopped conforming. They've started being like, I gotta do something about this. This should change. And they've begun kind of interlinking and connecting on that. And that's also what all these cells are starting to do, as we know, because we've seen Rebels and we've seen Rogue One, and we've seen A New Hope. So we know that they all eventually come together. But I do think that is interesting that in a way it's like showing the groups that are kind of bad at this in different ways is potentially frustrating. And I think, in the first arc, maybe more so than this one, although they're also, on my second viewing of this arc, just big flashing warning signs of how that heist is going to go wrong at the end of the third episode of this arc. But I think it's good because it's good to sort of have that, like, the sand in the process that's kind of grinding, rough course, et cetera, that's helping kind of gain the traction that will get us to where there's really a big community that's formed that becomes the Rebel Alliance.
I would say it wasn't until you said it that I kind of was starting to compare the Ghorman front versus whatever it was we saw. I forget what was the faction that our chums on Yavin 4 were with. Was it like the Mayan or the
Maya Pay Brigade?
Okay. Or
something like that.
Rest in peace, I guess. Too soon. But it does kind of show you it's like just upping the ante of every time these like small groups, detachments, or not spoilers, but anybody think the Ghorman front's making it out of this? I don't think so. But just the sacrifice of it. And so, it kind of goes back to what we loved about Rogue One, the sacrifice. You're seeing it on a massive scale. But yeah, it wasn't until you said that I was like, yeah, well, if you compare them, also not effective. Like, hey, by the way, we're the only two that's going to have a gun. Hey, by the way, I have a gun. All right. It's going to go poorly. Anyway.
Well, and I think just to buttress what you both were saying there, like I think it is a shame in the OT, and I hesitate to offer any criticism of the OT, but Harrison Ford very famously thought Han Solo should die in Return of the Jedi, and George Lucas pushed back and said, no, it's a happy ending, we all have to live. And I do think that in that way, Andor becomes this corrective where it's like, if you want to be real about how these types of fights happen, it's real sacrifice. It isn't just a Biggs that you kind of meet for a minute and then lose him. It really has to be people who matter. And that's something the sequel trilogy forgot, where they're like, we'll take away 3PO. Just kidding, he's back. We'll kill Chewbacca. Just kidding, he's back. I guess I'm only making fun of Rise of Skywalker. But
such an easy target.
So it's really nice, to PT's comments reminded me what I was saying about Brasso last week. Like, Brasso should be a Han Solo, but Brasso is a name that's going to be left out of the annals of the Rebel Alliance. Nobody will ever understand how good he was and how important he was, the way, all those small things that mattered. And that is, the lesson of history is, it's the faceless, it's the nameless that often do more work than the leaders that they get the credit for it. So It's pretty cool, I think, as a plot line. So I'm gonna bridge over to my first question because we've already invoked his name. And PT, you just mentioned how Cyril was not supposed to stand out, and that reminded me it was because he had a brown suit, and he's wearing the brown suit this episode, I believe. So he stuck to his guns. Take that, Edie. So I think the like real question here is unpack for me exactly what's going on in this plot line. But I'm gonna hide that underneath the question, is Cyril good at his job? Like, have we gone from the misfit who couldn't do anything right to like a kind of competent guy? Or is he a patsy in this scheme that's just becoming an easy mark and they're exploiting him? How do you read Cyril vis-a-vis, is he good at his job or is he just a lucky idiot?
I'll take this as a steal because my version of this question was how much of a rube is Cyril? Because I was like, how much does he get what he's doing, and how much of it is him choosing to do this versus how much is being set up around him? There's obviously information he doesn't have, but yeah, I think the answer is that, or my answer at least, not the answer, but my answer is that he's good at this kind of subterfuge, this kind of spy craft that he's being asked to do / is volunteering to do / has created for himself to do. And I think it's because his main motivation is praise. And while he's like working undercover in some way, or he's acting like, as a different person, he knows he won't immediately get praise for that. So he lets go of all of the sort of ticks and like desires to overreach, and is able to better maintain his choices, and is able to sort of keep up these narratives for the people who are listening and do all that. Because once he gets back to talking to Dedra, to talking to what's his name, the boss, Partagas. Once he gets back to them, he's back to sort of being like the puppy dog that wants treats, where he's just like, is this good? Am I right? Am I doing this? I'm doing this, right? And so I think that, yeah, that's what works for him, is he's good at pretending he's someone else because he's not good at being himself.
It's like, what are the chances that Cyril was the rube? I was going to say, insert the K2 gif. It's high. It's very high. I'll take this as a partial steal because I had a question. Whose ambition will do in the other first, Cyril's or Deidre's? And I do think that both are ambitious, but I say Cyril. It's funny. It's interesting that Cyril is good at jobs that no one cares about, right? We saw it with the corporate sector, right? Like they're going through his file and it's like, he was efficient. He was good. While everybody else was like, you know what? You can get by. You'll be okay. His boss on down. So it's like he was good sort of at the annoyance of everybody else. But I do think that I think his ambition even trumps a relationship with Deidre. I think that Deidre is so much smarter, and they're kind of using each other in the same method, but she sees 3 or 4 steps ahead. He would see like 1 or 2. But I do think, like I said, I think he's very good at certain things, but I think at the end, his ambition, don't be choked on your aspirations. He's going to be choked on his aspirations totally. But hey, they threw in Cyril this time, and I was dancing around. So I'm like, I've gotten all I wanted from Cyril this season and more, and we got Edie in the second arc. And when you start thinking about who is left on the board, whose stories are going to be finished, I'm like, we got another Edie, and you know what? I think we're going to get one more Edie, and I'm all there for it.
I did have on Canon Connections. I put Return of the Cereal. I don't know if we saw the actual cereal, but he slurped the milk, so it counts within the context. Yeah, I mean, I think you both raised questions that I have in the mix here, because it does feel like he is being totally played, that he gets to be the version of a spy he dreamed of, and as PT pointed out, we see his good tradecraft, right? Like he's doing all the things he should be doing and to do this well. But at the same time, Partagas gives that strong warning about like, you're playing a dangerous game here, because he's, clearly not aware that she wants the success to happen and she wants the overstep from the Ghorman front. I suspect we're going to get to the serious conclusion of what happens in Ghorman next arc. I think would be my guess in the structure of the season, having no real insights. And so I think that, to me, there's a little tiny part of me that wants it to be like Deirdre and Cyril are playing against the ISB, and I just don't think it can possibly be true, because I don't think I'm not convinced that Dedra Meero ever cared about Cyril. She has what I would describe as a Job Bluth moment in this episode, because in one episode of Arrested Development, they have Job sleep with the company secretary, who's actually a very lovely actress, but the gag on the show is she's so hideous he has to turn off the lights, and then you see them in a closet, and he's like, there's still a little light coming from under the door. And so it felt to me like Dedra is doing exactly what she has to do to minimally keep Cyril going and thinking he's in this relationship. I don't think she's in this relationship for romantic reasons, is my read on it, but I'm ready to be surprised if that's the case. As we talked about last week, Denise Go promised at Celebration that it was weird, and yes, she delivered on that promise. It's weird. But it's all like in Star Wars time, this is where the time jump like strikes you. It's like, oh, so now they've been in a relationship seemingly 2 years. They seem to have had a public breakup to kind of hide that he's there, but like that's kind of serious in terms of Star Wars time.
But I wouldn't be surprised if she got into a relationship with him after Ferrix, being like, oh, this guy, I can use this guy. Like he'll do whatever I want. He came all the way here. Like this guy's usable. My quote that I think goes in line with what you were just saying, Greg, is when he's like, I can't believe, Cyril's like, I can't believe you had someone follow me. Do you really think there's people watching my mom's house? And Deidre says, no, but we've got too much in it now to have it go wrong for something small. And I believe something small is them meeting up to be able to like spend time together. So like it's clearly like not on her priority list. And my guess is that what's going to happen is, again, this is pure speculation. I don't think Cyril's going to make it out of the Ghorman situation. Mm-hmm. And I think she's going to be surprised at how upset she is. I think she's going to assume I've written this off. Bingo. Like this is expendable. And then we'll be like, oh wait, that sucks. Actually, maybe I have human feelings.
And you know what? Wrote by Hallmark, never. Love never means saying you had your partner followed. Just it's never appeared. I am comfortable in saying it's never appeared on a Hallmark card or whatever, discount card chain. I guarantee it's not there. But I like that last part where you said, I think she'll have him. I think he'll be collateral damage for her, and I think she will be surprised, and guilty and all that of how she feels, even though it was calculated that he was going to be expendable. I think it started off maybe a little bit sincere, but I think over time she probably realized, and especially after it's amazing how far they got without meeting his mother. But I guarantee afterwards she's like, oh, yeah, this is going to end soon. So we better move this along. All right. At the risk of alienating our entire audience, I wanted to put this to you two. Jennifer, you're out there. Any academic, walk me off this cliff. Because right after I saw the amazing monologue by Saw Gerrera, where he is just, as my friend Paul said, he is now a huffer, for the righto. And I started thinking to myself, gosh, I was just soaking it up. And it was nice because I had a little bit of a break between that and the next one. And I really was kind of like, oh, man. But I was like starting to think, like, is Andor like our Rido? I mean, are we really getting too much of a good thing? And when you think about, like we've talked to Dan, Dan Z Coffee with Kenobi before about like how, and we've heard him talk about like, in some cases, right, this is a much different kind of Star Wars. Right. This is not, we're not bringing kids into this. This is the adult Star Wars that we got with Rogue One. And we're like, man, we're all in. Season 1 Andor, all in. Favorite program like this. And it just seems like now it's like we're taking that huff of Rido going, yeah, Andor, gimme. And I start going like, am I enjoying this maybe too much? Is this still Star Wars to me? I know we've had, it's amazing because everybody from like Nubs to Andor, it's all canon. It's all good. Everything's there. It's all pizza. See, there we go. Jen, there's your bingo card. Check it off. But I'm like, have we gone maybe too real? Is it just me going, wow, should I be enjoying it this much? I don't even know if that's answerable. You guys who have watched a lot of movies, you've seen this, this, good stuff back and forth. Is it just getting a little too real, or are you having too much fun, or just never mind, enjoy it?
I mean, the quick answer, never mind, enjoy it. But our show is a long take review, so we'll take a little bit more time to savor it, because I think that, you're right. There's a degree, especially with this release format, and I know you already talked about this last week, but what are we doing here? Like, we've got 3 episodes a week. We're getting basically a movie every week for 4 weeks. It is gluttonous, and especially when it's tied in with a re-release of one of the saga movies in the theaters. Plus, we're going to get basically a movie, like a short movie amount of animated content coming up this weekend. So it does sort of feel like we are gorging on Star Wars. And, it's possible that maybe it would be great to have some of that doled out a little bit more. I think that's less of an issue now and more of an issue in August. And so when we were like, hey, man, you got any more of that Star Wars? Because there's nothing happening. What's going on? But, I think, I think we should be okay when it's this good. Like, I think that part of the reason why we feel like, and I'll just correct, Saw's always been a huffer. I just never realized that. In Rogue One, I thought he was getting oxygen when he had the Darth Vader noise from his mask. But he's been hitting the Rido. That's got to be what it is. So, I think that, like, we're huffing Andor because, this is the Star Wars that we've wanted. It's not the only Star Wars we want, but we have wanted this Star Wars, or at least I have. And I know, there's people out there who are like, this is too real world. I don't know. I hope they're feeling better. I hope they're still around, because there's a bunch of aliens this year. So you're seeing aliens. But I think that we're getting what we want, and I don't think we should feel bad about relishing that, because, again, how often is it going to happen in general? And I think if all goes well with the rest of this season, I think Andor is going to clearly be like a peak of Star Wars, like, and not out of like out of 30 peaks, but out of like 2 or 3 peaks for me. So enjoy it. Let's savor it. And I like, the idea of binging it, but then also going back. Second breakfast, 11sies. Let's just keep revisiting and let it grow. I don't know, Greg Cass, what do you think?
I mean, you're already making me want my 4K set, because the first one is so beautiful. I want that second season to sit
Absolutely.
right beside it on the shelf. Physical media forever. I mean, I feel like I listened to some podcast last week where, on a scale of 1 to 10 Pringles cans, some fool gave it 12 jumbo cans of his favorite flavor, because it is that good. And I think I really like PT's word for it, which is gluttonous. It just feels that way because, this is eating something, not just a lot of something, but it's a rich, decadent bit of something, of food. Blast Points pointed out in their first episode, I don't know if they've tracked it into their second, that there's an odd number of fancy cakes in this show. And the one that stood out this week was Gorst had like a little fancy cake in a takeout container that he was ready to sit and eat while torturing some rebels, and then it got left uneaten. I thought we were almost going to have a leave the gun, take the cannolis moment there, just to make sure we get a movie reference in.
That's fair.
So, and that's a previous show, right? Leave the breakfast, take the Kenobi. Is that the show we created?
Yeah. I mean, of course, it rolls
show.
off the tongue. How could you not be?
I know. I was proud of that.
So, here's the baseline for me. Star Wars in 1977 was really important because it took a complex world that was screwed up with, as we all remember, because we were adults in 1977, that was, taking a screwed up, confusing world in the wake of Vietnam and trying to just present, let's talk morality in terms of black and white, and let's really help people understand what it means to be a good person and tell a modern myth. That was beautiful and that was important. But now we are almost 50 years into Star Wars, and the problem in our world today is too many people are thinking there's good guys, there's bad guys, and then you just pick which side you're on and you hate the other side and you fight it out. And I think what Andor is demonstrating is you can tell a big, complex adult story to help big, complex adults navigate a big, complex adult world. And it is absolutely beautiful. And I understand. I mean, my son has popped through and been like, "Oh, what's this? Why haven't we watched this?" And I wouldn't hesitate to let him watch Andor with me. I think he'd be bored. And I've seen the chuds, that's your word for them, right, PT, on the internet, saying how, it's slow and nothing ever happens. I don't have time for that, especially this season. It's not true unless you're half in your phone, and then you don't get a vote on what this show is doing. So I will just say Star Wars taught me how to grow up, and now it's teaching me how to be a better person as an adult and as an adult in our modern society. And so I think we should love it, and we should eat it up, and we should watch it 10 times, and we should never stop singing its praises, because I have no doubt we'll get more Ahsokas, we'll get more Nubs, we'll get more Lego, we'll get more all those other flavors. But I think there's a chance this is our one and done with this kind of Star Wars, unless those of us who really love it speak up. And so that's why I'm here. Thank you.
Oh, I like that. By the way, I was furiously looking up, thank you, PT, for reminding me, Chud, that came out in 1984.
Oh, sure.
Cannibalistic humanoid underground dwellers. There you go. I don't really want or expect or need the long take review to ever pull the curtain on that one.
Well, not to be confused with Cinematic Happenings Under Development, which was the movie news website of the 2000s that borrowed its name from the movie Chud. But yeah, I do think the Chuds technically like Andor, except they think it's, quote, too political, which is because they're realizing that their politics are being cast in a negative light. Because
are we the baddies?
Are we the baddies? Exactly.
I think if the long take review does do Chud, then I think that the hosts have to be labeled as Alan Smith with 2 E's. There we go.
Yeah, Smithies. That would be a long Smithy review for sure.
Long Smithy review. Thank you for kind of pulling me back off, because after a while it's like one of those things like, did I go back to the buffet table once too many times, right? And you start to go like, we kept talking like the writing on this series is amazing, and I'd really love other folks who are creating Star Wars, like, take note of this. This is what's possible. But I do like your thought, Greg, that this may be a one and done. This may be where the edge of maybe one thing could be, until maybe a generation, goes back and then they find a new way to describe a story for that audience for that time that takes it in places we would hope that, you know, it takes it in places we haven't, you know, like, would I have ever thought Nubs happened? I don't know. Droids and Ewok cartoons did happen. So, you know, and it wasn't for me, but there's a generation who really loves that stuff. So, you know, it's just one of those where after a while, when you really see Saw enjoying it a little too much, and Will's like, what are you doing, man? But you really, I mean, one, it was just an amazing monologue, and every it's like everything is dialed up in this one, just like they told us it would. But then you start to go like, wow, okay, reality check. But all right, that's fine. I'm going to dive back in with both feet and just enjoy it, and then just go, you know what, there's going to be all this other kind of Star Wars and all this other kind of way, and I shouldn't worry. Anyway, all right.
I do hope that even in the other parts of, you know, we have the scum and villainy world, we have the Jedi world, we have whatever's out in the future, we have the Star Pilot world. I hope that they take not necessarily the lessons of the plots, but the lessons of having all these characters that are so nuanced and unique. And maybe there is something to the political espionage type stories that are happening here to give people such internal conflicts. Like maybe that comes a little bit easier there, but like having all these nuanced characters would be wonderful in these other shows that I also love quite a bit. But like sometimes they're a little two dimensional at times, or it's all very simple in how they present it. And this level of nuance, I think, would be excellent. I believe it's my turn. Is that correct?
Round two. Let's do it.
All right.
Fire it up.
All right. I'm gonna shift, even though I always, you know, the problem of the ending each segment is I want to keep talking about Saw or Serial or whoever over and over. But I'm gonna pivot over to another one of our main characters. And my question is, what does Bix's tiny smile at the end of the last episode mean to you? What do you think? Is that just satisfaction at the job well done? Or does this say more about is she healthy, to use the Luthen term? Like, is this like a full recovery for her? Is this a temporary realignment? Like, where do you think she is after that glorious endpoint, that wonderful little final sequence?
It means she realizes she's won over my heart 100%, and she's coming to find me now. Just
that got weird fast.
Yeah, I just need
especially
some alone time,
because she's actually coming to find me, so I don't understand.
So just to pause and say, Adria Arjona, just incredible, has been in the whole run of the show. I will never get over the way she acted hearing the torture in the first season. You know, when we couldn't hear it, it was just incredible. And she's doing such a great job kind of turning this Andor moment into better movie roles. And so I hope people are checking out the movie she's in. She was fantastic in Netflix original Hitman last year. Is that the right one, PT? Yes.
Yes, I mean technically, like, is it Netflix original? I know it was distributed by Netflix. It wasn't like produced by Netflix. Anyway, it was on Netflix. Yes. It's still on Netflix. It's Richard Linklater. It's Glenn Powell, and she's wonderful in it.
And in Zoe Kravitz's directorial debut, Blink Twice. In that one, I was like, wow, this actress is really incredible. Who is this? And I was like, oh my God, it's Bix. Like it totally passed me by for a minute or two before I realized. So just incredible work. So I'll count this as a steal since, you know, we probably won't get back over to it. So I'll buttress this with my question was like, how worried should we be about Bix? And I think it's in the spirit of PT's question of like, is this plot line over, or is it just headed downward slightly slower perhaps as a part of this? But I worried about this plot line more than others, and I think it's because particularly with the drug use, that feels like a different kind of sensitive to me. And I was worried, despite all of my trust in Tony Gilroy, that this was going to be kind of cliche in a few ways. And there were moments that felt that way. The waking up, watching bad Coruscanti daytime TV with your takeout containers all around you. I mean, that's also known as my Saturday morning, but it's also a cry for help. And
those were the Pringle cans in question, right?
That's not the kind of breakfast we endorse on this program. On Long Take Review, Jen has a phrase I'm sure she coined from somewhere else called hope dicting. Instead of predicting with your head, you hope dict with your heart. And I am predicting that that smile meant she has slipped free of her bonds and feels emancipated from this weight that's been keeping her down. Um, I don't know that I am feeling totally confident in that, but I think the fact that she could clear this gorst of her past
Ooh.
out out of her psychology and start to put that trauma behind her. Um, I also think the smile in particular, to get back to the question, is also because maybe just maybe Cassian is finally viewing Bix as a partner. They both had the assignment. She's the one who got to go in. She's the one who was in the most risk, it would appear, from this. And I think what became clear across the first two episodes is that Cassian has been treating her with kid gloves and letting her play like she's in the rebellion, but really protecting her and being too cautious around her. So I think the smile means that she felt in that moment that she was a full partner with Cassian. And I really want to know what you both think about, is she free or is this just trouble? Greg, tackle it first.
You know, it's interesting that, now that we have seen, in some cases, many times, Revenge of the Sith back in the theaters, I think there was one Dr. Cass who talked about, the fact that Padme is kind of on the sidelines for a great deal of Revenge of the Sith. So you could be, one could be mistaken if you thought, well, okay, Bix, in this one, she's shown to be kind of compromised, and is she just going to, like, slowly kind of, like, get worse and worse and worse over time? I would say this is kind of a steal in that I was like, one of my questions would have been, is this Bix's last hurrah? In which case, I'm still sort of agreement, because I do think that even though the smile means that she thinks, I got this, I'm not sure, and I think I would be more interested in seeing that there would still be either a little bit more collateral damage to kind of round out the character, because she is kind of playing with, anytime you're working with drugs and things like that, it doesn't quite clear up that quickly. But, like I said, I also want to see a more vested Bix in this, because that's interesting. Yet, as we kind of know, people are falling off left and right in this series, and I got a real funny feeling the next arc is going to take out quite a few. So it's one of those where, it's great she's back, but are we prepared to lose Bix? And I think we're going to probably have to be, folks. I don't think, I think it's interesting what they talk about, was K2 kind of the, was he projecting BMO on K2? And you're going, exactly how many people is he going to be projecting on K2? Because that's about all who's left. But what I would say is, one, who had more Dr. Gorst on their bingo card for season 2? And shout out to Joshua James for doing a great job. And also, sadly, who also thought Gorst Black Series figures were on their all right, never mind. I think Hasbro was going, all right, we got to get a doctor. Oh, never mind. No, it's cool. It's cool. He's gone. But I would say, in and of itself, that was such a satisfying end. And just when that door closed and all you heard was silence, you knew exactly what was going to happen. But I do think that it's interesting. It would be great to hear David Motters on this. Shout out to the Reactions podcast, because it would be interesting when you're talking about, if you actually, if you're suffering through this trauma and there is what appears to be a satisfying end, what happens afterwards? And it'd be interesting on one level if they address that, but on the other, like I said, a lot of these folks have got very short fuses left before they're probably done. So it'll be interesting to see how they tackle it.
So, first of all, I will say, if they put out a Dr. Gorst figure, it's got to come with a Comcheck chip. They got to bring that back, so we can hear the sounds of
there you go, Sal.
children.
The only way to hear them, yeah.
Hasbro, like on a tiny little speaker, on a little communicator device. Hasbro, that one's free, but so that's good. I also think, I of course have been, kicking around. Okay, well, who's making it? And working for the first couple of weeks on, well, no one except for the people that we see in later movies. So everyone else is on the chopping block, which has got me thinking that instead of most shows, not sometimes Star Wars shows, but general like prestige television, where there's a general threat. It's like, well, who's not going to make it? You'd watch a season of The Sopranos or you'd watch a season of Breaking Bad and you're like, someone's going to get it. I think now it's like someone's going to survive that you don't think will. Like there's going to be someone who makes it through. Like, and I do think the two candidates right now would be Vel, that she like quits and goes back to Chandrila and is just able to live a life and does that. And then I think just the big like twist would be Bix. If somehow Bix lives, Bix is like, I'm out, I'm gone, and you know the end of the show can be, you know, Mandalorian time, and she's just on a farm somewhere with B2 hanging out, and they survived and they're able to deal with it. I don't think that's likely, but like that's my I'm gonna cast that speculation here. I'm gonna in terms of my question, I'm gonna split the difference a little bit. I'm gonna think that like this gets her over the nightmares. This gets her over a lot of that sort of thing that's holding her back, which was both sort of that trauma and also that problem with Cassian, of Cassian being worried about her because of the trauma. So because Cassian can sort of give her equal standing, she is going to have less worry about it. But I don't think the death sticks are going to go away. I think the problem is going to be she still hits that from time to time. And eventually Luthen's going to find out. And eventually Cassian's going to find out that Luthen has found out. And it's going to be an issue. So that's my, again, now I'm just rampant speculation here. But I think something around that will happen. I think she's still around. I think she's still doing stuff. I think she'll be active. There might be this problem hiding in the background in parallel to Saw losing his mind, hitting his gas. She's got her drops.
Boy, your language there just sounded so much like Tay, right? Like when you've got he was drinking too much and he got loose lips. Like it's not that far a leap to Bix a little high, a little out of control. Boy, that scares me.
Yeah, Luthen says something about like you know, I'm waiting to Cassian when he comes to the shop. I'm waiting for you to decide when this is too big of a problem to deal with. And you know, that's I don't think there's a second visit from Luthen where he's just doing a check-in.
Yeah. No, it's Cinta comes and picks you up for a nice friendly ride to a farm upstate.
Not anymore.
Yeah, not now.
Oh wait, yeah.
No.
Oh, we're good then.
Here.
Wow. Sorry.
Greg, I want to defer to you because I think I've got like a wrap up kind of one that would work well as the sixth and potentially final question. So you take number 5.
We do have a little more time. I think
okay.
we can.
All right. So I'll save it.
Feed me.
All right. All right. Let's talk about the death I apparently just forgot about minutes ago, and say, I mean, I hope it goes without saying at this point, every single one of these plot lines was incredible. And so, like, just our inability to cover them all in depth does not mean I didn't love it. Everything with Vel and Cinta was so good when they show up. Their interactions with each other. I will disclose a text message from PT that says nobody's ever been more dead than when Cinta said, like, I would leave this all and go away with you, right? But I loved the Rebel planning scene where they mapped out, you know, it's kind of classic George Lucas, but I also thought of Doc Brown saying, please excuse the crudity of this model. I didn't have time to make it to scale or to paint it.
Where were the kids with the dice, man? That's all I was looking at, man. That is to scale. What game is this?
So here's what I want to say. I think we already had an incredible in-the-moment reaction to Cinta's death from Vel. But I want to ask long-term, just a little bit of speculating, what's Vel's reaction to this? Is Vel going inward and disappearing, or is Vel going outward and becoming violent and crazy in response to this? Where does Vel go from here after losing seemingly the love of her life, who had to go film Doctor Who?
That's a steal. That's a steal. Tell you what, I'm gonna shoehorn that a bit into the question that I had, is like, will Vel blame Andor as much as the Ghorman front for Cinta's death, and how much more fallout will come to Cassian for not taking the gig?
Oh, interesting.
even to the point of, do we think, I'm answering with just questions, do we think even that we'll see Cassian and Vel together at this point, you know, in a dialogue to dialogue moment, other than just maybe showing up like at the end of season 1, where a lot of pieces were there but they didn't interact. So, you know, I think it's more interesting if Vel kind of like, I mean, that idiot who shot Cinta got exactly what he deserved on that, and I'm like, man, you're gonna have to live with that. That's the monologue of the century right there. I mean, that's an MVP type monologue. But I'm also wondering, I'm like, did she save a little left for Cassian? I didn't really even answer that. I just asked more questions.
Yeah, I mean, this is the opposite of an academic conference now. Instead of, this is more of a comment than a question. This is more of a question than a comment.
We have to do a whole show where we just ask nothing, but it's just constant line of questions. See, I'm on brand.
The Rosencrantz and Guildenstern episode. Okay. So I think that I had not thought about her potentially blaming Andor. I think if she does, that means she's like, I'm going after everyone who did this. But the fact that she, you know, I don't know if Vel in season 1, meaning 2 years before this, you know, in universe, in the story, I don't know if she lets that guy live. Like, I think if that happened before, she would be like, well, now I'm going to kill you. So the fact that she was like, you're going to live with your guilt. And like, you know, you need to do, like, you're just going to have to wear this, wear it like a skin this is like skin. Yeah. You're taking her with you wherever you go, the rest of your useless life. I did write out like 3 of the monologues so I could have them with me. That is one of them. And so I think the fact that she let him go means she wouldn't blame Andor. I think she's going to blame Luthen, because Luthen's the one that kept them apart. So it wouldn't hurt as much if they had spent more time together, maybe. Or I think that's where she'll go. And then it will be like, you know, if we hadn't been kept apart, we wouldn't have insisted to be on this mission together, which means she wouldn't have been in that situation. And also, Andor had said that they weren't ready, and he was right. And you said we go anyway, and this is what happened. So if anyone needs to be watching their back for Vel showing up with a blaster, I think it's Luthen. And what I'm curious is who sees her first and who talks to her first, Luthen or Mon Mothma? Because Mon Mothma says, I want to tell her I care about her. Which Luthen was like, what? Oh, sure. Yeah, people care about other people. That's fine. But like, that's what she wants to do. And that may diffuse some of that and let them have a conversation and process their emotions and be grown-ups and adults in a difficult time. Or she's going to see Luthen, and I don't think it's going to go well for one or both of them.
There's a lot of good thoughts in what both of you just said. So I think I was really struck my second viewing with the fact that prior to the mission, when they're having their cafe coffee date, Vel really emphasizes that I wasn't going to do this mission unless you were here. So I hear what PT just said about like blaming Luthen, but I think Vel might really blame herself, because it was that kind of selfish impulse to try to get her tent buddy back. I mean, I think they were in love. I don't want to make it sound like lust, but to get her love interest back together and to get in her face again. I mean, in the first arc, I don't think we talked much about, but Vel collapsed in that window, just kind of devastated, is a pretty powerful image, and you can see why she would try desperately. We get this filled in that Cinta was injured, that there was, you know, this estrangement between them. But I think it's going to harden Vel in very similar to how you're both saying that I don't think she's going to be out for revenge. I think she's just going to be totally uncaring. And Vel seems to me, I love all the characters here, but Vel seems to be the most ripe for a novel, because there's so much interesting backstory there that could be unpacked. The idea of her being the twist in season 1, right? She's a spoiled Chandrillan princess in so many ways, who gave all that up to join the rebellion. I'm interested to know that story, and there's a lot there about how she doesn't like the betrothal system, and obviously seems to love women, and that doesn't seem acceptable on Chandrila as far as we can determine. So there's like this rich backstory there that I think I'm a little scared if she just becomes like completely shut off and hard. But I think this is what turns normal people into soldiers. It's loss, it's grief, it's blaming yourself. It's really becoming isolated in these ways, and that makes her dangerous. Would she go see Luthen and immediately accept a suicide mission? I think she would, right? And that's sad and scary. So I'm nervous. We got 6 more episodes. We'll see what happens with Vel, but she's not I'll choose to pick your farm with Bix. Maybe Vel will be at that farm too, and they could be together. Yeah, that's perfect.
Well, it's interesting you say that, because it's like, yeah, I think she could go either way. Would she even will she want to stay on Ghorman, because, if she just leaves, then what was Cinta's life worth if they just go away? Will she try to avenge? And then on the same time, we're talking also, Bix has been emboldened by finishing her. Who, me?
Nope.
Oh.
PT was muted just a minute
Oh,
ago.
okay.
Sorry.
Okay.
I was trying not to interrupt the show, just to pass that on.
No, but then you have, Bix also on a collision course. So does it seem like all these strings are going towards Ghorman when all the smart money would be like, get the heck out? It seems like is Ghorman just going to have this gravity that's just going to pull in everything, and it's just going to go hugely bad. That's not a word. The one question that I would have, that's almost like, it's amazing going over most of these, and pretty much they've been knocked out. But speaking of hate on Luthen, I was kind of curious, and I'll run this through you guys. We had the return of Skulden, who I was a little surprised to see again, but played a really interesting part. His return after the wedding, and in this plot of like having his office mic'd, and then them having to this great interplay of them trying to remove this listening device. I am curious, will he play any other role still, even maybe being a part of Luthen's demise? We've got a line of people who probably want to take out Luthen. The money is probably that Luthen doesn't make it. But do we think that Skulden has any more cards on the table? I mean, he's also an interesting wild card, as I think of Charlie from It's Always Sunny. Wild card! But he's out there, and he was really upset about one of the pieces in his collection being a forgery. Does he come after Luthen as well? Do you think he's got any more role in this?
That's interesting. It certainly seems possible. Like, I think he'll be around because of the Mon Mothma connection. So it feels it wouldn't feel odd for him to still be local. And I like this question because I had notes that I couldn't really formulate into a question around sort of his status as a kind of, like scoundrel who was so successful that now he's like semi-legitimate, and he's this nouveau riche. Like, he collects all this stuff to show off this money he has and to get into this high society of the Senate investiture ball party thing. And all indication is everyone is like, oh, this guy. But he throws a good party, and this food's really good. So great. And then you get to go see these art pieces, and that's really cool. But like, this guy. And so in a way, no one respects him and no one likes him, but they've let him in at these upper levels because he's got money. And, it is interesting. It's interesting to ponder. And again, like, I couldn't get the question out around it, but it's interesting to ponder that eventually it feels like it's going to be an issue that the rebellion needs money, and Mon Mothma will need more money. Once she's publicly the person in charge, I assume she'll lose access to a lot of her funds. My guess is that means that she'll be cut off from him too. But he's also, like you say, a wild card. So what if he's just like, yeah, these guys were never actually good to me. So here, like, I'm going to fund you. I'm going to throw things your way. Or he's going to try to turn her in. Or he finds out about Luthen before anyone else does, and he shakes Luthen down somehow. It's like, give me 20 of your best artifacts, or I tell Krennic, who I'm buddies with, and you're, beyond dead. You're tortured for the rest of your life. So yeah, I think he could have something to do with it. It is just as likely that we never see him again, that he has served his purpose.
That's fair.
And maybe he's mentioned once or twice, but so yeah, I mean, that's part of the magic is we've got like, I saw something they said they have like 80 named characters over the course of these 2 seasons that like they've got all on the board and any one of them could show up or play a part at any moment. That's part of what's great about this. Plus all these other Star Wars characters who in theory could come in from Rebels or Solo or as people from Rogue One we haven't seen yet who will show up besides K2 who we know is going to show up. So yeah, I mean there's a lot of options on the table in just 2 weeks for us to keep watching it.
Especially after Tay is gone, I think we've learned that this guy is dumb, but not about money stuff. So I think he knows exactly what he helped facilitate, which makes him very dangerous to all these characters. Some guy they called Bale said, well, your family with him now. And I think that was a good note to remind us, like, yeah, and PT just said it, like, they're intertwined and her fate is there. Actually, Force Ghost Connections reminded me, it's just hard to sometimes remember the deep time of Star Wars canon. Like, there is a pitch for this show that's like, Mon Mothma is going to be Chancellor of the Galaxy of the New Republic someday. Let's look at her early days as a politician. It's like, it's crazy to think about that. That's, we're going to see this estrangement we imagine from her family and her cultural circles. But she someday post Jedi will be nominally the most, powerful person in the galaxy, which is kind of wild to think about. We could debate that, but in terms of her title, it would seem so. So, boy, that's dangerous to owe a lot of money to a criminal if you're about to be president. I wonder if there's any real world implications that we could compare that to. I don't know.
Luckily, the real world's not that crazy.
No, a mobbed up leader never could happen. Wait, I see a red laser dot on my forehead. I'm going down.
Get this back
I'll
on
see
the
y'all
track,
later.
Dr. Cass.
I think it's not somebody I really felt like was going to come out and play a major part moving forward. But as you both talked, I can see it, and I could certainly understand him wielding this power he seems to have.
Based on the middle part of that rambling before it went really off the rails, I realized that's what I want the other Tony Gilroy show to be. When we get another one of these, is him writing the Mon Mothma leading the New Republic show. And just like Filoni's Clone Wars fixed the prequels, quote unquote, can we fix the sequels by explaining what the political machinations are that J.J. Abrams didn't want to deal with? And maybe that's it. Maybe we get the sequel and it includes the shakedown from her in-laws. That could be a theme of the next Tony Gilroy show. Tony Gilroy, who absolutely would love to dedicate another half dozen years of his life to working on Star Wars.
Also, I just want to point out the bribe from Luthen you ask for are the Temple of Doom Shankara stones, which were visible again this episode, or the Queen Amidala headpiece, which is also out on one of the shelves. But I'm taking the Shankara stones.
And I think also what's still very cool is, like, we've kind of alluded to the fact that the next arc potentially is where Ghorman is. A lot of stuff is going to go down because we still have K2 that needs to be introduced, and we probably will see Cassian put into a rebellion uniform, being called captain. So to me, it would seem like this next arc, all right, the Ghorman thing's happening, but also at the same time, we're getting Mon Mothma's story. And so all these pieces between Vel and Skulden and Perrin are still on the table. And now we have a new Bail Organa. It's one of those, like, and I was like, for a second, I was like, yeah, okay. No disrespect, but if there are schedules that couldn't happen, or we didn't want to spend a whole lot of money to de-age, I'm okay. And I think actually this may open up to even more stories with Bail. I'm like, yeah, I'll take more Bail. Same thing as we're gonna get, early days, like whatever. But at any rate, yeah, it's just there's a lot of things going to happen. But I will say once again, shout out to Force Ghost for bringing up the fact that, season 3 of Rebels, number 18, Mon Mothma's departure, after she makes this speech, about the Ghorman massacre, and you're like, oh my God, I'd completely forgot how specific that was. Now you got to go back and watch the episode, by the way. It's worth it. It's a great episode. But now you got to go, all right, we've got to kind of get to there. And once again, we've said, she's going to have to lose quite a lot to leave the Senate, or at least flee the Senate. Yeah, but there'd still be a lot that is is being exposed, whether, family and people and things like that. So a lot of things have got to happen in these last 6 episodes. And it's just, if you thought this one was ratcheted up, it's just going to be ratcheted up even more at any rate.
It's interesting, speaking about that episode, which is a great rewatch. People should go back to it. It's interesting how intertwined, I almost forgot how intertwined that speech was with her being with the Spectres, being on the Ghost, and having that whole story of that episode. I was like, what are they gonna skip over everything but the speech and just let people see her speech the way it was broadcast? Because she's standing in the cockpit of the Ghost giving this talk. Or are we going to get all those live action actors from Ahsoka in to be young versions of them? Or are we just going to skip over that? Is that going to be between arc 3 and arc 4? And it's going to be real heads know this is what happened.
What's interesting, PT, is that in the early part of that episode, they're listening to her speech. And so you could totally see kind of a reverse, Hux from Resistance. There you go. Put that on your bingo card. Where she can give the speech at the end, and it means that we know what happens after that is that she is whisked away and then meets the Rebels crew. So there's a great way to tie that in without having to worry about getting the Ghost crew on, although I would absolutely love it. It does kind of make sense that you could butt that in there, because she's just going to have to leave, and then the next arc, the final arc, 1 year after that. But in which case, once again, those next 3 episodes, to me, like I said, we're kind of speculating at this point. There's a lot of water they got to carry, but at this pace, it's you can only get so many shots of Saw huffing Rido. As much as I'm like, what, I guess I'm there for it now. I've got my license. I can go back and rewatch Saw just huffing Rido. But at any rate, other things have to happen. Well, I didn't realize I was going to bring it to a complete halt from that one. But that's fine.
No, it's a good thought.
Am I wrong? I think it is your turn. Is that it's Greg M's turn to ask a question?
Well, the Skulden was my question.
Okay.
But I would say if we've got any quick ones just to kind of bounce off, once again, how much stuff have we not covered in this? But once again, that is the legwork that other podcasts can totally take.
Yes.
And those who don't mind going 3 hours, and those of us who'd be more than happy to listen to that. But
some people have trips. I understand.
Some people have trips, but also it's just that, like I said, there's a lot of ground for everybody to cover, and just in how these shows are packaged to us, instead of just going beat by beat, there are some things that pique our attention and some things that we've been able to kind of go over in some detail. But I am kind of curious, outside of, I did get my Gorst Black Series question answered. Did anybody have any quick beats or some maybe final thoughts?
Well, I've got a couple of don't answer these, just goofy questions, but I do want to just throw them out. How fun is it that the Ghorman word for toy is gizmo? I enjoyed that. Should it have been Cyril or Cassian that was carrying a paper bag with a baguette while walking around Ghorman? And then this is actually more from the first arc, but I still think it needs to be out there. What is the real world equivalent of Niamos, the Galaxy Far, Far Away pop song that is remixed and used in every context? What's our song that's just everywhere, but in all different genres, in all different contexts? My real question that I think is quick, we mentioned it briefly, but I do want to sort of focus in on a little bit. How are we feeling about Benjamin Bratt? Dale Organa, or are you going to let him be Bale?
It really grated on me. I have seen the explanations. I understand this is no shame on Benjamin Bratt, who's a great actor. But I said this on probably every single one of the text chains I'm on, which is we spent all weekend seeing how great Jimmy Smits is. What terrible timing to reintroduce this recasting while we've just seen Jimmy Smits in Revenge of the Sith on the big screen. So I didn't like it. I was slightly mollified by the fact that this was a brief cameo to introduce a bigger plot arc, is what Tony Gilroy has said publicly.
Mm-hmm.
If this was just a cameo to remind us Bale's around, I was going to be so angry because it's like you don't do a cameo and not get the actor. Like that doesn't make any sense. So, I will give him a fair shake at it. He deserves a shot at the role. I understand, but I wanted my Jimmy Smits. Jimmy Smits, all that was in my mind was how excited he was at the Kenobi premiere, right? So for people who weren't in the room at Celebration, they premiered the first 2 episodes of Kenobi. It was a surprise that Jimmy Smits was in it, so they hadn't let him do any press, and they let him out on stage, and he was like amping up the crowd. He was feeling so good. He was so excited to be back as Bale. And then I'm like, what? No, he was so excited. So I was bummed. Is Star Wars broken? No, I'll be fine in the long term. I just think it's a shame they couldn't either make the deal or make the schedule work out correctly.
You know, it's interesting because if that's his only appearance, then you go with the amount of money that they threw at you, you could have probably de-aged, Jimmy Smits, and I think we would have been happy. But I would hope that this is a down payment on more Bail Organa, one way or the other. And it's interesting, coming from let's say folks who grew up with the prequels versus, let's say, folks who grew up with the OT, where it's like, like if someone came back and said, hey, we're going to recast, Mark Hamill, and you go, whoa, yeah, even though it makes sense to do X, Y, and Z, as opposed to a beloved prequel character, and also who has carried a lot of water since that time. So it's kind of tough. Like, on the one hand, I can kind of go, but on the other, I get it. And what's great is that Jimmy has really done a great job, and come back, and it's great to see him. So, I just hope it was worth it to do this.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm going to say. Make me, think it was worth it to get this, other than just, instead of being a shortcut.
Mm-hmm. And the good thing for me is there's never been something in this show that hasn't been worth it in the end. Mm-hmm. Every time there's something where I'm like, what are we doing? And why are we doing this? It's like, oh, okay. Like the Yavin 4 reveal in the first arc, where I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. That's why we spend time with these idiots. Like, got it. And so, like, the down payment of, okay, and this is what Tony Gilroy said in the article, is like, we're going to give him like one quick scene, 30 seconds, let everybody adjust and be upset about it and figure out how they calibrate themselves. And then going forward, it will hopefully be less of an issue. Makes me think that Bale is notable going forward, or at least in part of what's coming up next, which is great. Yeah, like I love Jimmy Smits. I think Jimmy Smits is great. I don't know if I felt quite as like, oh my God, how could you replace Jimmy Smits as Greg Cass does. He's got some weird line deliveries in Revenge of the Sith. We'll be talking about that in the long take review recording in the next few days. We'll get into some of the performances. But like what I loved about it was just that, like, we had him all along. Like, he was in the prequels. He's in 2, he's in 3, he's in Kenobi, and he was in Rogue One, and now it's gonna be this weird, like, oh, and also he had a weird, like, cosmetic surgery phase in the few years BBY that led to him looking a little different. Which, okay, yeah. But the fact that, like, the reactions I was seeing, just randomly online, so that's always questionable to even bring up. But people being like, why didn't they just hire, like, do what they do with Luke and just hire someone who looks like him and then digitize his face to look like Jimmy Smits? And I was like, well, that sounds bad. And then Greg M., you saying, well, they could have DH'd him. It's like, well, I don't really want that either. Like they could have, he's whatever. He's older. It's fine. Like we believe in it. It's all right. We're believing in Diego Luna, even though he is 10 years older than he was in Rogue One. It'll be fine. I don't think that would have been an issue, but like now that I'm thinking, oh, they probably would have altered him somehow now that he's almost 70 to play Bail pre-Rogue One. Maybe I won't be as upset that they just brought in Benjamin Bratt. And Benjamin Bratt's great. Like, I think he's going to be fun. And I think it would be weird to have it be Senator Jones of some other planet that's working with Mon Mothma when we know that Bail Organa is like the guy that's around. The thing that like trips me up, and I'll stop talking, is there is the kind of like behind the scenes, like stuff that's in movies that's aimed at the opening weekend audience, but not really aimed at telling the story. The big example I always think of is the reveal in Star Trek Into Darkness that Benedict Cumberbatch was playing Khan, which they had lied about for 3 years. And then he says, my name is Khan, in this very dramatic way. And all the characters are like, okay, like, we don't know who you are. Like, that doesn't mean anything. But it's supposed to be a big deal for the audience. And similarly, there's the like, emerge from the shadows, the music changes, Jimmy Smits reveal in Rogue One, which was like, no one said that Jimmy Smits was going to be in Rogue One. Like, what a surprise. But now when you watch it, you're just like, why is Bail Organa getting like the hero entrance? Like, no disrespect, but I mean, come on, Bail. And so now it's going to be extra weird if you're watching everything all the way through and it's like, oh, okay, they got a new actor. That's fine. And then it's like, bum, 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 guess who's back? Jimmy Smits. I think might be weird when it comes to Rogue One, but it's okay. Whatever. It's also a TV show. It's Star Wars. It's not serious. We'll be fine. Everything's fine. We'll be okay.
Greg, you'll always have Kenobi. Always.
He's really good in Kenobi.
I
can't defend his Revenge of the Sith line readings, nor do I plan to. But I will say he's really good in Kenobi and has a few moments I really love in that series. Although every time somebody talks about the quality of Andor on a normie podcast, Kenobi catches a few strays of like, it's better than that garbage Kenobi. And I was like, oh, come on now.
That was
it's clearly a whipping boy. I understand it's a lot of volume distaste, but I still like that show. Well, my wrap-up question was just going to be quick. We are halfway through the season already, just like that. Poof. So I just wanted to hear each of you pick an MVP, because I know sports stuff too. So which character and or actor, you can separate them or kind of group it together, who's winning the season so far, just in these 6 episodes thus far?
Oh, man.
Yeah, this is a good one.
I want to pick with my heart, but that's going to mean Edie
that's all
Karn.
we have.
That's going to be Edie Karn. And I shouldn't do that. That's gonna upset the audience. Boy.
Similar to what I keep coming back to Cyril because he's giving us different looks. He gave us the funniest moment of these first 6 episodes when they cut to him on the bed. And he's in this interesting like dynamic of, like we talked about earlier, showing new things that he's able to do while also seemingly just being like the ultimate failure that he always has been. And he's just, he's on the wrong team. So I'm going to go with him for now. Certainly for the acting, with the, and then it's always like, and it's hard because like Luthen's always great. Cassian's always great. Mon Mothma's always great, but I'll go with Cyril.
Oh, boy, that's tough. What I would say that, gosh, we have seen Cassian really come into his own, the opening monologue, and he's carrying a lot of the water for this, but he's doing a great job. But also Mon Mothma, because I know that she, we know Cassian's end in Rogue One, and of course Mon's going to make it out of this series. But I think she maybe has it's tough because her and Cassian both have the most to lose. and it will be. I think it's interesting because they did a really great job with her trying to negotiate the wedding and the one shots and all that, where she's going back and forth, and then of course Dance Dance Revolution at the end. Hello, we had the Ross disco ball in there, but I think there's I'm going to bank that she's done a really great job. I think she is one of my MVPs, and I think that unfortunately she's got a lot more she's going to give us. I'd say Mon.
I was 100% Mon when I had this written down last week for a question for who's the MVP of the first three. I think she fell a little this week because she wasn't given much. She wasn't at all bad, but we haven't talked enough about her kind of barbing Krennic. Brilliant, really good stuff. It was just kind of a more muted role. I will never stop thinking about her dancing as the world burns, and that was so wonderful. So I'm gonna pick slightly out of it, and I think again I'm thinking of the delta from my expectation to what they delivered. And as PT just alluded to, Diego Luna Cassian delivered exactly what I thought. Luthen. So the big surprise for me this season has been Clea. I think she's awesome this season. And, to the point about how many characters there were, I think I'd kind of stopped caring about her or had written her off as just kind of the assistant last season. Although in my rewatch of season 1, she has that phenomenal walk through Coruscant through all the brutalist architecture of London. And it's really wonderful. The Barbican gets a nice moment in this week's episode where the exhibition hall, if you've ever been to the Barbican, became the bodega, which is really nice. Fantatrax has a write-up about it. So I'm going Clea, and that is particularly, on the strength of this week and her, bossing around of Lonnie. But also the moment in the wedding when she and Vel have their little back and forth, and she says, we're just two single ladies surveying the crowd. And Vel's like, nope, not interested in surveying the single men. Thank you. And so she's been really fun. I love her kind of losing control this week. And, I would take a Black Series of her with the whole radio setup for the DJ spy setup. It's all great. So I'm going Clea.
What do you think, PT? Oh,
yeah, I said Cyril. Yeah,
okay.
I went Cyril on this one.
Okay, all right. That works. What did I have? I was going to say on one of those I did have today. It's the question is Director Krennic categorizes his capes. How many categories are there? I was doing it as a Friends reference. But anyway, yeah, I think I cannot leave this podcast without mentioning what a gorgeous cape and uniform he had for, it was his, I guess, fancy guest. We'll call it just to be friends. Anyway, all right. Is it time for Pringles can reviews, Dr. Cass?
Well, just shout out that they announced the Krennic Black Series in his dress uniform right before the show dropped. Hasbro's nailing it this season, dropping those in.
Nice.
So it's always fun to see. It is time for Pringles cans. So we'll let the guests go first, but a reminder that we are evaluating this on a scale of 1 to 10 Pringles cans. Pringles cans being based on the fact that I once paid an exorbitant amount of money to have a Kenobi branded Pringles can shipped to me because I did not receive one at the aforementioned Kenobi premiere. So, as the most expensive, ridiculous Star Wars memorabilia, PT, what are you rating this whole arc in terms of 1 to 10 Pringles cans?
Oh, it's funny you asked a question that just requires a one-word answer of a number, but I'm gonna say first, were the Pringles still in the can? Was it sealed? Or had the Pringles been eaten when you ordered
They
this?
were still in the can and they were sealed. I debated, beloved long take main host Jen Subchakchai has horror stories about her episode 1 soda cans disintegrating.
Yes.
And that was on my mind when I opened and ate the Kenobi flavored. They were plain. But they tasted just like Ewan Sweat. I ate all of the salty Pringles and then have saved the can somewhere behind me. But yes, I just have the empty can.
Outstanding. So I will also just say, as Dr. Cass knows, I'm really big onto the ungrading movement. So I'm doing this under protest, labeling any numbers to anything. That said, I'm gonna go with a 9 on this because I mean, everything Andor is really great. Maybe it should even be a little higher, a 9.5, because I think it's was so good. I loved the sort of John le Carré spy like elements of this, like Cassian and Cyril crossing paths, going undercover into the other person's world. All that stuff I thought was really good. All these stories, we talked about all this stuff. That was good. So I'm going to say 9, and I'm going to push back a little bit against the slander against original plain Pringles, which I think are excellent. But I will note, original plain Pringles as of like 1988, when they used to be at my grandparents' house. I don't know what they've changed. I don't know what's happened. Every time I've gotten Pringles in the last 10 years, they're whatever.
Changed,
they're only okay. So I need 80s vintage Pringles, 9 of them for this arc of Andor. Thank you.
As someone who grew up who had Pringles in the house a lot and plain Pringles, I can't co-sign that, PT. The nostalgia hits, and yeah, I'm right there with you. They were a part of the household, but they are not my favorite chip. But that said, I think I'd also co-sign on, like with Steve Sansweet over at Rancho Obi-Wan, that said that they do remove the food items from the other thing. Otherwise, cans of beans and sodas and things like that tend to explode over time if you're not careful. So yeah, anybody who's wanting to pack stuff in one of those, like survivalist, caves that you build under your house, just yes, that food may not be perishable for some time, but just be careful around it. At any rate, what's your Pringles cans review there, Dr. Cass?
I was going to make you go next.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine. I think I'll also sign on to the 9. I'll ratchet it up from last week's 8 because I do think that it's starting to move up, and I think we want to say, do I get my hopes up for some 10 territory here in the next 2 weeks? And I say, yeah, I think we're due for some 10s real soon. But I do think I really loved how it's been executed. Everything looks great. Like I said, keep your finger on Bail. All right, just like with Saving Private Ryan, you want to hear him say, "Earn it." Earn Bail, okay? Let's make it earn it. And then other than that, yeah, I think it's fair to say a 9.
The original screenwriter of Saving Private Ryan was a friend of mine, so that's very cool. In my hometown in New Hampshire, inspired by the monument we grew up on, and I don't get to brag about that enough. All right. I'm sorry. I'm checking notes. Yep. You're both wrong. This was, again, 12 jumbo cans, sour cream and onion. It is absolutely incredible that we are living in a time where Andor is on our screens and we get to live a single moment of it. And we lived nearly 3 hours of it this week. We have talked so much praise, but we didn't even touch the surface of the costumes, the sets, the creatures, the aliens. PT did mention the aliens. Everything about this is so incredibly realized, and it's so deep and wonderful. It is just a fire hose of greatness, just straight into our eyes. And every week that we get to enjoy it, we have to celebrate every single moment of it. So, yes, that's right. I just have it in. I won a Nobel Peace Prize for claiming that this was worth 12 Pringles cans. Thank you and good night.
I think it's
Can
just
inflation
nice.
We can all get behind.
Yeah. And I think it's nice, even though that fire hose was on you throughout the whole podcast, unlike Rido, it did not melt your clothing. And I want to say thank you very much, even though this is a podcast. No
but my
clothing.
insides are not okay.
Do you feel that soak? Do you feel that wetness?
No clothes were burned off during the making of this podcast. I just want to say it. Everybody still has all that, even though with all this goodness, the fire hose, and you can call me a huffer. It's all good, all good. Anyway, all right. Just before we let everybody go, and I think you guys buried the lead earlier. Are you guys on the long take doing Revenge of the Sith?
I believe so. It
sounded like you guys were saying like an upcoming episode, and I'm like, sorry,
I thought I
Jen,
was
if it wasn't
signing
on the calendar.
I thought I was signing on to do that. I guess the person to really ask is Jen, because she's ultimately in control. But that seemed to be where the conversation ended. That yeah, we would do a similar to when we talked about the Phantom Menace last year and Return of the Jedi the year before.
Okay, all right.
We used the theatrical re-release as a jump into discussing Star Wars and wedging our way into discussing the state of things, and also looking back at the recently re-released movie over on the Long Take Review, wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah, I was going to say, where can you find the Long Take Review?
Oh, well, you can find it wherever you get your podcast. We host it at Jen's Substack, thelongtake.substack.com. But we're also on Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube, wherever you're listening to this podcast, look for the Long Take Review and you will find it. You can also look for us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at the Long Take Review, or look for us on Letterboxd at LTR Pod.
Excellent. PT, thank you so much for coming on. Dr. Cass, where can people find you?
Listening to PT do that, it's like slipping into a warm bath, and like my body knows it's like it's bedtime. Greg, you've made it. It's time to go to sleep. Yes, really big shout out to Long Take Review, where PT and I have the pleasure of working with Jen Sobchakchai and Antonio Elefano to put together fine podcast programs. Most recent episode, if you're interested but don't like me, when you're listening to this episode, will be the Sinners Review, which features one of our listeners jumping into my chair and the four of them reviewing Sinners, which is a phenomenal movie, which I didn't get to say on air, so I will say here for no apparent reason. And then, as is currently the plan, but not yet in the can, is we will be recording about Revenge of the Sith for Star Wars Day, a special bonus episode. And then Jen and I, because I badgered her enough about Captain America, will be reviewing Thunderbolts, the new Marvel release this week, which I had the chance to see about a week ago, and it's a really fun one. And if you've been soft on Marvel of late, I think this might win a few of you back over to it. It's good old-fashioned comic book fun. And maybe what I'm going to do at 10:30 tonight instead of going to bed is go see it again. So we'll see. And you can see whether or not I do that on my social media at Ion Cannon, EYEONCANON. Thanks, Greg. It's always a pleasure.
Yes, and thank you for having me.
These people are pros, I tell you. And that's why you got to listen to other podcasts, because you never quite know what your next episode's going to be unless you listen to other podcasts. Anyway, if you have a question for the Breakfast Pack, you can find the Rebel Base Card on the socials at X, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and Blue Sky at Rebel Base Card, or you can email the show. I promise I'll respond to you at some point. Greg at rebelbasecard.com. It's just been super, super busy. All right. This was a good one, and like I said, thank you, PT, for coming on this one, because there's a lot in all these to unpack, and we've got 2 more weeks. I hear we have a special guest coming on one of the last arcs, which I was like real surprised about, but incredibly excited. So I am super once again, you got to listen to other podcasts to figure out what's going on. At any rate, all right. But for PT and Greg, we're going to return you now to your podcast playlist. Already in progress. This podcast is not affiliated in any way with Topps, Disney, or Star Wars, nor is it endorsed by Disney or Lucasfilm, and is intended for entertainment and informational purposes only. All names and sounds and any other related items are properties of their respective trademarks and or copyright holders here in the U.S. and abroad. The official Star Wars website can be found at www.starwars.com.
That's it.